If you've been on Instagram or the high street recently, you've probably seen these beautiful utility pants with double front knee patches. One company that's probably pretty popular and notable that does them is Rudy Jude. If you take a little scroll through their Instagram, they have such beautiful aesthetic and style, and so today we're going to be drafting the double front knee patches so you can add them to your jeans. I haven't seen any other YouTube tutorials on this, so I'm really excited to share it with you, and I hope that it's helpful so that you can make your dream pants. When you're done drafting and sewing your pants, this will be the final result. I've already made them and I absolutely love them. I wasn't totally sure that the knee patches would fit my personal style, but after wearing them for just like a few hours, I already absolutely love them. I feel like they integrate really well into the other clothes that I have in my closet, especially the clothes that I've made for myself. So without further ado, let's get into it. We're going to start by taking the front pant leg of whatever jeans pattern you're working with. Personally, I'm using the straight leg view of the Helene jeans by Anna Allen. I really love this pattern and would highly recommend it if you're interested. We're going to take our pattern piece and retrace it so that we have a starting point. Okay, once your pattern piece is all traced out, we're going to use this as our starting point. The knee patches are going to begin from this side seam, go out this way, and pretty much mirror this edge here. For the jeans that I'm making, there's a 30-inch inseam. I want the bottom of my knee patch to start 10 inches up from the bottom of the pant leg. So I'm going to put a dot at this 10-inch mark, and then I'm going to draw a line all the way across. Now the knee patch doesn't actually go all the way to the edge here. I want to bring it in 2 inches. So I'm going to make a mark 2 inches in from the inseam. Then at the top here, I'm going to draw a straight line just under where the bottom of the zipper will be. For the next part, I'm going to be using a pencil just so that I can kind of trace out where I think I want it to be, and then once I've finalized it, I'm going to draw over it on marker so that it's easier for you to see. For the beginning of the curve here, I'm going to go in 1.5 inches. I'm going to make a mark here. Then at a 45-degree angle from this crotch curve, I want to go in 2 inches. This point here is going to be the beginning of the crotch curve, and this point here is going to be the end. You can actually take your original pattern piece and use it as a guide. Once that's all in, we're going to attach this point to this point. I'm going to draw a straight line parallel to the inseam, but in by 2 inches. And I'm going to stop the line where the curve begins. I'm also just going to draw on this portion so that it's easier for you to see. Okay, now I'm going to take my original pattern piece again and I'm going to use it to connect the dots. Start all the way up here and end down here. Okay, now we're going to add our seam allowances. I'm going to use a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So we're just going to measure a 1/2 inch in on every single side except for this side seam. Our pattern piece is officially finished. All we have to do is cut the paper out and then use it to cut 2 knee patches out of our denim. I also like to retrace this pattern piece onto our final pattern piece. That way I know exactly where I want to sew the knee patches down, and I can put a notch at the top and at the bottom of the side seam. Okay, let's get into cutting it.
When cutting, make sure to be precise and not cut away any of your seam allowances. I find the cutting process really enjoyable, especially with this golden hour light, so I just want to encourage you to enjoy the whole process. I know that pattern cutting can feel like the most tedious part for a lot of people because we just want to get straight into sewing, but I've personally found so much value in being intentional about the whole process. It really brings a sense of beauty and joy to my garments that's hard to explain, but I hope I can encourage you to find that same beauty and joy in the cutting and sewing process. Now once we've cut out our pattern and fabric, we're going to bring our knee patches over to our ironing board and iron it out all nice and flat. Then we're going to iron in our seam allowances. For our pattern, we made the seam allowance 1/2 inch, so we're going to fold in and iron the edge by 1/2 inch. I personally like to use a seam gauge to make sure that I'm being accurate. but you can also eyeball it if you prefer. Don't forget that the side seam of the patches will be aligned with the side seam of the pattern piece for the front leg. This means that you don't need to iron in the seam allowance at the side seam. Once all our seam allowances are ironed, we're going to find the notch of our front leg piece and use that as a starting point for our knee patch. Then we're going to pin or clip the knee patch in place along the side seam of the pant leg. Next, we're going to sew down the knee patch. Make sure that for this portion you're using sew-all thread and not top stitching thread. Then we're going to take our work over to our sewing machine and sew a straight stitch very close to the edge of the pant leg. We'll start at the top where the notch is and end at the bottom of the panel, which for my pant is 10 inches above the bottom of the pant leg. Now that that seam is in place, we're going to pin down the rest of the knee patch. Make sure that the knee patch is as flat as can be when pinning it down so that it doesn't end up bubbling once it's sewn down. Now once everything is all pinned in place, we're going to change out the thread on our machine to top stitching thread. This thread is thicker and more visible than sew-all thread and is perfect for details of jeans. Just make sure that you use sew-all thread in the bobbin and top stitching thread in the spool. Top stitching thread is too thick for the bobbin and will cause issues for your machine. Now we're going to top stitch all the way around the knee patch close to the edge. I recommend going slowly so that you have a beautiful straight seam, especially since this thread is meant to be seen and admired. When going around corners, simply put the needle in the down position, pick up the presser foot, turn your fabric, put the presser foot back down, and begin sewing again. Now once your first row of top stitching is in place, we're going to go through and do a second row of top stitching. I think that this is both visually pleasing, but it's also an extremely practical detail, because having 2 rows of top stitching is extra durable, and since these are considered workwear pants, you want to make sure that they're durable for everyday wear and tear. Now when you're doing your second row of top stitching, I recommend going even slower than you did with your first row. This is because you need to follow the first row as straight as possible so that they're evenly spaced. My presser foot has a little mark on it that I line with the first row of top stitching. That way I know that the second row will be the same distance away from the first row all the way around. I'm pretty sure that most standard presser feet have these guides on them, so use your guide, go slow, and you'll love the finished result.
Alright you guys, that's it. Your double front knee patches are officially done and I'm sure they're looking beautiful. If you found value out of this video, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, leave a comment. I am trying to monetize this channel and bring as much valuable sewing content to you as I can, so if you have any specific requests, please leave them down below. And if you're planning to make the Helene jeans, I would recommend watching this video next where I go over all of the fitting process, the twirls that I made, and the tips that I have for you. Thank you so much for being here and I'll see you in the next one.